Welcome, Mark. And you have traveled far and from the U.S. to come here.
I have.
And
Thanks, John.
what do you think are the common goals the CPAC Australia would like to achieve?
Well, I think for me, it's all about encouraging those that have conservative thought, who believe in freedom of speech, who believe in a limited government. They don't want to empower the government to rule our lives. And yet it's been really encouraging to me to be here in Australia, to see like-minded men and women that believe that freedom and liberty serves us well. So I've been very, very encouraged just to hear some. There's lots of people that are fans of our president Donald Trump, and so I was shocked to see so many "Make America Great" hats here in Australia. But it's been a real encouragement, I think, for us is to see CPAC grow, not just here in Australia, but on the entire Pacific Rim. If I know that there will be a CPAC Japan, there's a CPAC Korea, and for me, it's about making sure that we embrace those ideals that are very important.
That's great. And do you believe Trump's tough stance on China will actually help unite the free world together?
I believe so. It's difficult, whenever you take a firm stand, like the president has taken with China in particular, it causes a little bit of concern. In Australia, it's no different. Probably the number one question I've gotten is, well, is this going to escalate to a point where Australia will no longer be a trading partner? Some have said even from a military intervention standpoint. I don't see that, but I do believe that the Chinese are underestimating the resolve of President Trump. He wants to make sure that we have a respectful relationship with our Chinese trading partner, but also one that's really built on free trade, market principles, no currency manipulation, and to the extent that we can have that kind of relationship, he wants to reset it. He's committed to doing that.
Yeah, and many Australians actually believe that Australia should not be worried about trade with China because the basic principle of supply demand, because what China wants from Australia, all the natural products, the mining, the agricultural, the horticultural products, it's not about if you don't have a good relation, do not stand tough on them, they will not buy because they need it.
Well, and you fundamentally have hit a key area, John. Listen, China is going to trade with Australia if it's good for China.
That's right.
It has nothing to do with a relationship.
Absolutely.
And you can look at China's interactions with other countries, and it's not based on a relationship. It's based on those things that if they need coal from Australia, if they need commodities from Australia, it's a whole lot easier to get them from a closer neighbor than it is to try to import coal from the United States or wherever it may be. And so I would not worry as much about that. Most countries, and China is no exclusion, they actually do what is in their best interest. Their best interest is to buy from their Australian trading partner, and the Chinese people are not foolish enough to say, well, we're just going to put that off limits.
That's right. And are you, not whether you have seen it on TV, are you concerned a little bit about the Labour senators calling the banning of Raheem Kassam from entry to Australia?
Well, of course, I did read about that, but here's the interesting thing. The left always does this, and I say the left, obviously there are some in the Labour Party that are not left, but most of those that are being vocal are coming from the left-hand side. If they can't win the argument, what they do is they want to ban people from having the free speech. We are better off because we have an exchange of ideas. You have a different background than I have, and yet we're able to have a discussion, debate the ideas. But for a lot on the left, what they want to do is, in this particular case, is not give them a visa to come to a country that supports free speech because they don't like the speech that perhaps is communicated. Now, we can all condemn those things that are hateful and wrong and bad, and I do that.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time, we must protect that free speech, and that's what makes us stronger as a nation, whether you're in Australia or the United States.
That's right. It's basically not hate speech, it's a speech you hate.
That's right.
Right?
Well said.
Yeah.
I may use that and not give you credit. But it is. I mean, a lot of times what happens is and I'll have debates with people on the left. Try to do it with civility. You have a very different opinions. A lot is suggested with when you go on TV. You have one argument back and forth, and sometimes your argument is more with the commentator than it is with your colleagues.
That's right.
And yet, free speech is something that should be celebrated. It's where all the new ideas come from.
That's right, that's right. And also, what is your comment on the recent Hong Kong movement? Because as an example of people waking up in Hong Kong.
Well, I applaud it. I can tell you that what happens is when a lot of the movement came, now decades ago, with regards to Hong Kong, and actually, having it become part of more of mainland China's government structure. There was a real concern for a lot of us, not just from a market standpoint, but from a free speech standpoint.
Yeah.
And I think what you're seeing is now the people there in Hong Kong rising up and saying, hold on just a minute, we don't want to give up those freedoms that we have long enjoyed.
Yes.
And we're starting to see that, and they're right to do that. And I think it scares the Chinese government because when you have free speech and you have the ability to articulate that, and then it's multiplied not by one but by tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, you have to take notice. As a politician, if one person is saying something to me, I might, I'll tell you, but if hundreds of thousands of people are saying it, you have to address it. And so I applaud them, and yet they need to stand firm for freedom because ultimately it is that free society that is the most prosperous. John, I'll share one other. Because you can look at the region, you can look at what freedom does. The peninsula of Korea, you've got South Korea versus North Korea. You've got the 9th largest economy versus the 125th largest economy. Same people group, same peninsula. Freedom actually shows that it is helping the people. A non-free society in North Korea has not. And there's no better case study to show what freedom does.
That's a very good example to show just a few meters away, two different worlds.
Exactly right, yeah.
Right. And what if Communist China one day, let's say, decide to take the absolute action, use the military force against the Hong Kong people?
Yeah, I think that two things would happen. And everybody looks at military force. Sadly, we can look through China's history to see that free speech, dating back to the late 1980s, is sometimes military force is used. Part of that comes out of fear. I think this is different, though. I think what we have is an economic force, a freedom, and also the taste of what economic prosperity does. And so across China, not just in Hong Kong, but in Beijing and other cities throughout all of China, they're starting to see that economic freedom actually means they have a better way of life, a better standard of living, and people, when you start looking at that, will condemn that military intervention. I think it would be strongly denounced, not just by the United States, but all freedom-loving countries, and not just denounced, but it would have an economic impact on China that their economy could not afford. I think the retaliation would not be military necessarily. In fact, I would say that it wouldn't be military intervention. But the economic fallout is something that I don't think those in the Chinese government, President Xi, would want to see.
Yeah, because this is something, again, we want to ask you about, because even though Hong Kong has this 100,000 people coming almost every day, but just a few, across the water, China has blocked, because it's firewall, all the country from knowing that.
Right.
And So that's why we see the Communist China's infiltration into all the Western free world in every aspect, far and wide. And
that's a concern, John. I think when you look at that, it's even a concern in the United States when we look at censorship of real news. You know, like you say, the firewall, so that they don't get to see that. But I also have a firm belief, just like other times where hundreds of thousands of people actually get up. Even with the firewalls, the information starts to get out.
Yes.
Reporting like you're doing. Actually, it may not hit directly in the hands of some in some of the larger cities in China, but it gets there indirectly. And
You're right.
It may just travel. It may have to travel a little bit longer route to get there.
We do have 9 million Chinese people climbing the wall to see Epoch Times news. In China.
9 million.
9 million.
Well, and so you think that 9 million that are climbing it, that you can see them breaking over that firewall. But what about their families? So it's not just 9 million there. It's the extended family. So you've got 3 or 4 family members, nieces, aunts, uncles. All of a sudden, yes, there's 1 billion people in China, and maybe you're only reaching 30 to 40 million, but it makes a big difference.
Right.
Thank you for reporting the truth.
Thank you.
Well, with people like you covering the truth, we can't help but succeed. So thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.